Nowadays, you see consumers are very much are very very aware. So you would have seen that there's a label on every product. It's given how much of sugar you should have, how much of salt, how much of fat, and you also next to that you have an RDA. RDA is the recommended daily allowance. Internationally also for exports, for example, there is something called InfoSan, which is a global network. So any ingredient which has come up anywhere in the world, it will throw an alert on that system. And especially younger guys have already started putting QR codes on their product. So if you scan it, and there are another startups who have developed apps. So you can scan it with that app, and it will give you a very simple way of telling you whether you should eat this, and if you're allowed to eat it, how much should you have.
A very warm and rejuvenating morning, everyone. It is my privilege to have with me on stage Shri Rajit Punhani, sir. Shri Rajit Punhani, a 1991 batch IS officer of the Bihar cadre, is currently serving as the Chief Executive Officer, Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. It is an honor to have sir with us here. In India, currently, it has become apparent issue to see adulterated food and beverages even after the regulations of FSSAI. So where, according to you, lies the policy gap that we are unable to fulfill till now?
So thank you for having me here. It's my second time. I had come here last year when I was CEO of Sunset TV. So just to set the perspective, FSSAI is the Food Safety and Standards Authority. So normally we set the standards of what a particular product should contain, how much of sugar or salt or saturated fat, how much of antibiotics or pesticide is allowed in that particular product. So we set the standards. The enforcement is primarily with the states. So we have a huge unorganized sector. So a lot of the, so in the organized sector, by and large, we are able to monitor. But in the unorganized sector, informal sector, the adulteration takes place. It's very difficult to monitor on a very large scale. But I would definitely say that over the past few years, there has been a lot of enforcement drives, and we are trying to curb this. But more than that, I would say the consumers have become very aware. And because the consumers have become very aware, automatically they are, besides the complaints we get, they are also not buying or not purchasing those products. So, I mean, a lot depends on the consumer awareness. So we also try to launch consumer awareness campaigns, as you might have seen, especially for paneer and for ghee. We have launched consumer awareness programs, and we've also launched the Eat Right Thali. So for each state, you have a thali which gives you how much of protein, how much of vitamin, how much of carbohydrates one should or calories one should have in a day. It's also not good to have only protein or only carbohydrates or only vitamins. So what a balanced diet should be, so that also we try to propagate.
So, sir, as you said, that it is the consumer's awareness that decide what would be consumed or not. And along those lines only, several of India's food consignments have reportedly been rejected, scrutinized, and even in rarest cases, they have been blacklisted also. So what are the most common market compliances failure on India's part that are being identified by foreign regulators?
I wouldn't say it's several. It's been, I mean, if one takes a percentage, it'll be a very minuscule 0.000% of the total exports that we do. But there have been cases about a few years ago where some consignments were rejected. It was mainly on account of pesticides. So what happens is that See, we also have to educate and create awareness amongst the people who cultivate the crops and who raise livestock. So, whether it's the crops, we have to make sure that we don't consume much of pesticide. Similarly, we do not give unnecessarily to our livestock antibiotics. Like even for us, you might have seen Honorable Prime Minister also in a recent speech talked about why we should be careful of consuming antibiotics. We tend to consume antibiotics very easily as humans also, and that creates what we call antimicrobial resistance or AMR. So one should not consume antibiotics unnecessarily. Similarly, we have to educate the farmers not to give antibiotics to their livestock, because the moment you give antibiotics to the livestock, it will come in the output. So that is something that we need to be careful of. So I think once this thing starts, this one-off case was it's a one-off case. Otherwise, normally most of our exports go through without any problem.
So we talked about contamination due to insecticides and pesticides, but keeping that in mind, that India, as a pioneer of green revolution as well as white revolution, so if we try to reduce the usages of these insecticides, pesticides, and antibiotics, would that not cause a supply chain lag, or would that not be a threat to India's food security as a whole?
No, I don't think so. Right now, we are very, very, very secure in terms of food. It wasn't like the 1960s or 70s when, the Green Revolution took off, and that time we were facing shortages of food. Right now, I don't think we have any problem as far as shortage of food is concerned. So there is, in my personal view, a need to reduce the amount of pesticides and antibiotics we use.
As a layman, is there any early warning mechanism that exists to prevent exporters from facing bans after shipment?
There's a very strong system. There's a very robust system. That's why the rejection rate is 0.001%. I mean, it's very low. We have an export inspection council which tests all consignments before they are exported. And that is done on a very scientific basis, and the testing is very robust. Besides that, the importers from the various countries, they also have their councils or their associations or their representatives who come to India, and they also inspect the units which are producing these products, and also they inspect the laboratories. So each laboratory has to get accredited. It's not easy. It's not a very simple laboratory. The laboratory has very high-end equipment, and so they have to get accredited with various agencies before they are given that certificate that they are allowed to test things for export.
So your background in public policy is, I believe, second to none. So when we talk about food safety, particularly in the food security domain, what aspects do we need to consider so as to minimize the gaps, the policy gaps that we see today?
Now, I wouldn't want to put someone, when I talked about consumers, some people say that you are, running away from your responsibility, but it's very much demand driven. So nowadays you see consumers are very much, are very, very aware. So you would have seen that there's a label on every product. It's given how much of sugar you should have, how much of salt, how much of fat. And you also, next to that, you have an RDA. RDA is the recommended daily allowance. So if I'm saying that I should not have more than 25 grams or 50 grams of sugar in a day, I know that by having this particular product, I am consuming 8 or 10 or 15 grams of sugar. So I know I should not have that much. Earlier also, there was a campaign which was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister about um, tail come. So he had appealed to everyone to reduce your consumption of oil by 10%. And we are seeing results in that. We also launched the campaign from FSSAI, and we are seeing results that now the consumption of oil overall has reduced. So it is not yet reduced by 10%, but it has reduced, it is not increased. So there is that awareness that one should consume less oil, less sugar, less salt. Obesity is now recognized as an issue. Non-communicable diseases like diabetes, heart problems, these are now recognized as major issues facing society. So consumers are all getting more and more aware. So I see a very hopeful future.
Since we are already talking about FSSAI and their initiatives, so how is it that FSSAI ensures traceability, farm processing, packaging, export, especially for spices, dairy, and processed food? Because this, what I believe, is something that is very hard to do.
So we have a full traceability mechanism for every, see, in the organized sector. So for every packaged food that you get and which is manufactured somewhere, when the manufacturer applies for his license, it's an online system, which is quite simple. But when he applies for his license, he has to give the whole distribution mechanism. So, and when products are sent out, then it is sent out in batches. You have a batch number. When it reaches a shop also, they have a number. So any product, if you pick up any product from any shop, which is packaged, then we will know which batch it has come from, which distributor has distributed it, from which manufacturing unit it has come from. That manufacturing unit has taken ingredients from which all manufacturers. So nowadays, fortunately, with the digital mechanism and AI, it is now everything is on our on our portal. So it's very easy to trace. Traceability has now become very easy. So if there is by chance any minor fault in the chain, in the supply chain, it is immediately recognized. Internationally also, for exports, for example, there is something called InfoSan, which is a global network. So any ingredient which has come up anywhere in the world, it will throw an alert on that system. And if that product has been imported into our country, then also it will throw an alert and we will immediately get to know where this particular product or ingredient has come from. So our traceability mechanism is quite strong.
Sir, with the advent of artificial intelligence and digitization, how would it lead to accessibility in the licensing, as we talked about? And how is it that the government of India is regulating the same so that not only we can ensure food safety, but also ensure that we do not enter a second permit license, Raj?
Oh yeah, everything is the licensing system is very easy. We just have to inform. We do not do a very detailed check while applying for the license. So getting a license is very easy, but after you start and once we keep on testing, every 6 months we test the product coming out from the manufacturer. So there then we try and put the accountability on the manufacturer, that if we find while we do our random sampling testing that there is some fault, then there may be problems. But while applying for a license, there is no issue. It's very, very, very simple. And even now, 99% of our licenses are with the states, and they also have it's the same portal. It's a very simple and transparent system. Yeah. So AI has helped us. For us, it's a boon. It's a big, big help, because now we have a very large database, because besides being a $4,000 billion industry, we have about 70 lakh 7 million FBOs registered with us. So we have all their data. Now to analyze that data for traceability, AI has become a big, big help for us. So if I have to trace anything on any supply chain, I can use AI, and it's very, very easy to find out where the fault was. So for us, it's been a great, great help. So, we are encouraging now that more and more people just register on the portal. You don't have to have a license, you just have to inform, so that the more and more data we have, it also helps us in setting standards, so that, what should be the standard that a typical consumer should be allowed to have.
So, sir, my last question would be from us as consumers. So, I'm sure all of us would agree that we all are budding consumers. So, what is it that we as individuals should ensure that whatever we are eating or whatever we are purchasing is safe for us?
So I would say read the label. We have a campaign called Har Label Kuch Kehta Hai. We are trying to urge the manufacturers to put a QR code. Some startups have already started, especially younger guys, have already started putting QR codes on their product. So if you scan it, and there are another startups who have developed apps. So you can scan it with that app, and it will give you a very simple way of telling you whether you should eat this, and if you're allowed to eat it, how much should you have. Suppose, for example, biscuits. So in a day, you should not have so many more of this particular biscuit. So the quantity will be told to you through these apps. So as a consumer, I would really urge everyone to look at the label, preferably put pressure on the startup or the manufacturer to put a QR code, so that you can scan that label and decide what to eat. Also have a look at our Eat Right Thali. For each state we have an Eat Right Thali. It gives you a balance. This is also bad that you have too much of protein. That is also not good. So how much of protein you should have, how much of vitamins, how much of carbohydrates, how much of liquid, it's given in that thali. And depending on which state you are from, or which you have been brought up, or your parents or grandparents have been brought up in, one can adopt those thalis. The other is we are trying to encourage to have home cooked food. The best thing is to make your paneer at home, or make your ghee at home. When we were children, long time ago, everything was made at home. Also try and cook your food at home instead of ordering from these platforms which give you instant food. So anything, you should have to give time. When you give time for playing games or watching a cricket match or so many other things, please give time to your cooking. So try and give some time, half an hour, 1 hour in a day, to cooking your own food. And that is the healthiest.
Thank you, sir. This was such an enriching as well as a reflective session. So, sir, your insights have not only helped us as consumers, but also as individuals. So on the behalf of the organizing team, as well as everyone present here, I would like to thank you again for being with us here today.